The last time I'd seen him, I was dead. It was just nice to see him again in a character who was not dead. And I don't know, in a way, there was everything was so massively prepared, and they could show you kind of digital renderings on their iPads of what everything around you was going to look like as you did the scene in the Avengers and what this guy was going to turn into when he became a rage monster. And this was very, very not like that. And then I had not been available, and then somebody else couldn't do it, and Joss beautifully called me back and said, "You're still not available?" Like 4 days later. And I said, "Actually, that's funny. They just pushed the thing I was going to do, so I'm abundantly available. But, you know, don't you start tomorrow?" And he said, "Yeah, you're in." And when I got past the terror of that, it kind of was like, I know we were doing Much Ado, but it felt a little bit like Midsummer, because there was this kind of fairy magic where things would just kind of mysteriously appear, and I didn't quite know what I was doing, or even what the lines were a lot of times, till they started to come out. And that seemed to really function. It's kind of what felt like the magic, was kind of discovering it there in that space. It really became this whole kind of impromptu thing.
Joss, you've said that making this was somewhat therapeutic for you post-Avengers. Why was that? What was it about it that really kind of calmed you down?
Yeah, I mean, everything. But particularly to be with people I love, doing work, not just that I love, but doing it in that sort of compressed, let's put on a show, we only have this much time kind of hothouse. It just, you know, you walked away every day having accomplished an enormous amount, having fulfilled it. There's one scene that we shot over 2 days because of losing light. And it's a very tiny scene and nobody would ever notice. But for the main, you know, you got these things out of your system completely, and you have this enormous sense of accomplishment. You know, as opposed to some of the Avengers where you're shooting 1/10 of an explosion for a week, and sort of, it felt enough like theater to sort of give you that high all the time, yet it felt also like we were creating something truly cinematic, and you don't usually get both.
Well, and you've been able to cultivate such a great, essentially sort of a company of actors in the time that you've been working in what has become known as the Whedonverse. But you also cast several people that had never been in the Whedonverse before. How did you find and cast those actors?
There were people that I knew a little, maybe, and admired. In the case of Nick and Brian, it was just a shot in the dark. I was like a huge fan of their web stuff on Britannic, and Danny said, "I think I can get a hold of them." I was like, "See if they want to fly themselves to Los Angeles to have small parts in a movie where they make no money." And they were like, "Sure."
So guys,
so dumb.
How was that?
I mean, we were pretty positive it was a joke at first. I think, well, you said it best, we're still waiting for like our high school bullies to come out.
Yeah. We're still not sure this isn't a big prank.
Josh was like, "Will you fly out and do this?" And we were like, "Yeah, of course."
What do you think we do, Dorothy?
He flew out and he was like, "I can't believe you guys flew out to, like, all the way across the country." And we were like,
Again, what do you think we do?
Of course. It was a blast.
And you cast a couple actors that essentially you discovered for this film. First and foremost, Jillian as Hero, right here. How did she come to you? How did that happen?
Well, I was shooting with Ashley the last few days of Avengers, and Jillian was running around and things were blowing up, and she was looking real scared.
And you thought Shakespeare?
Yeah, it's to say. There aren't as many explosions in Much Ado as I remembered, actually. That was disappointing. But, you know, I had a feeling. And I wasn't sure, but I was pretty sure. And I know a lot of ingenues, but there was something particular about Jillian that I thought matched as being Amy's cousin. A real sort of poise. And so I asked Disney to read her but they were taking too long, because I don't think they understood that I was going to shoot in like 30 minutes. So finally we auditioned on Skype. He did a couple of bits from Romeo and Juliet on Skype, and I said, okay, come on.
And so, Jillian, what is the Joss Whedon experience like?
Is this on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shut it down.
It was the first experience I had, so I didn't have anything to compare it to. But I knew when I was on it that it was something special. It wasn't something that, looking back retrospectively, I'm like, oh, that was such a special experience. Like I knew while I was doing it that this doesn't happen all the time, and they've become like I love them, my family. So it's the best.
Last year at this time, Joss, you were here with The Cabin in the Woods, and we talked, and you had mentioned that that was the first time you'd seen it in a couple of years because The Cabin in the Woods was delayed for a long time, and you said what was weird for you was that Fran is one of the sort of main characters in that film, and is a completely different guy. He's this stoner kind of intellectual, and in this film he's this romantic hero. And you said it was very strange to see that Fran after having spent a lot of time editing this Fran. So, Fran, what is it like to when you got the call and they asked you to be the sort of romantic lead after having played such a different character? How did you sort of prepare for that?
Well, I think Alexa said you just say yes and then worry about it later. I like the opportunity to play different characters. You know, that's what I'd like to be sort of seen as a versatile actor. So I was excited to do something different. And I just remember getting an email from Joss saying I'd like you to play him as a temperamental jock and not the wet he normally is. And I just sort of ran with that because, I mean, obviously there was a lot of direction on set and specifics, but, you know, I don't think there was a lot of time to do much more than that, you know? So I sort of took that and went with it. But yeah, the opportunity to be different and to change is what I love most about this. And so, you know, with what I've done with Joss, I'm so thankful for, because all three, I think, characters I've done show great, you know, show range, and it's you know pleasure as an actor to be able to do that. But yes, certainly Marty and Claudio couldn't be more different. It's good.
And Tom, who's sitting right behind me, so it's going to be very awkward. Hi.
He's saying that.
You.
Real tight there.
So.
I've been to a Christmas party, so this is awkward.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say this.
You got to do comedy with Nathan, and what I just want to know is who came up with the Lost Keys gag.
Well, I just keep crediting Nathan because I just look to him. He's got all the charm and charisma and fearlessness that I will never have, so I just try and soak it up through his tiny jacket. You ripped my jacket, by the way. That was my actual jacket. What's the question now? I think it was your idea. I just followed you.
I asked you if you had the keys.
And in the spirit of improvisation, yes, and I just went with it.
Tom, it takes a big man to fill your tiny jacket.
I'll see you later tonight.
You can see
We will
brought
do it together on
romance to
that.
the comedy.
Ashley and Emma and Joshua, hello. Hi. What was it for you guys sort of coming into this kind of crazy zoo and having this sort of classic Shakespearean role of you have like one great moment and then you are kind of around? What did you kind of learn from this whole process? What was it like to observe everything kind of unfolding?
Well, when I had met Joss before. We have some mutual friends, so I was aware of his the Shakespeare readings that he does. And so, you know, I got the email, and And I really thought that's what it kind of was, and maybe he was going to use his iPhone, a couple extra flip cams, and then as soon as we pull up on day one, there's rows of trucks, and I was like, oh crap, it's a movie. Oh, other people are going to see this, and it was, I mean, the absolute greatest 12 days that you can imagine. I mean, I don't think, every one of us is going to tell you the exact same thing, but it was really absolutely amazing. Emma?
I couldn't agree more. It was totally like that. And we probably just had a little more time to drink than everybody else. There was that too, which was a nice added bonus.
Yeah, I think mostly with this group, I have just a few good moments, and the rest I am just hanging around, so it's not true. No, yeah, I think it definitely gave me a little bit more time to get to know some of the people that I hadn't met yet, and it was one of the best 12 days, or the best 12 days we had together.
Yeah, I was like,
I don't really like public speaking, so I'm going to stop, because I'm going to sound like I'm done.
And Spencer, what I want to know is, how did you get through the scene with Sean and Ricky that I'm too modest to say what he was doing, but how did you get through that scene?
Honestly, I don't think I knew what was going on. What was happening during that? I don't know. I was just like looking right at Sean's eyes because he's like has those piercing. And it's too bad they couldn't be here right now. Ricky and Sean and Reed, Remy. But Reed also has done a lot of Shakespeare. Most of all of us. I don't know. But yeah, it was a blast to do that scene. It was really fun. Even if I was ignorant about most of what was happening.
When we were talking, Spencer and I were talking about the interrogation scene, and I was like, I want to play all of this like SVU. Okay? That's the vibe. Yeah, I was like, pretend you're being interrogated by Chris Maloney. He's like, I've been interrogated by Chris Maloney. Okay then, draw on that.
Off of the scene that Spencer was talking about a second ago, this is a very sexy movie. And to a degree, I think it's maybe the sexiest thing you've ever done.
That includes having sex. I'm sorry.
How did you come to this wanting to do that? Did you sort of like bring a lot of sexuality to it?
This is going to go downhill so fast. I think the worst was for Ricky, who played Conrad, who had to come in to do one line in ADR and sex moans. And she's like, did you really need the line? I was like, yeah, I swear. Yes, it is an interpretation. I feel like some things, the first rule of film is, yeah, you can talk about it or you can show it. It's a visual medium. And since Amy, Alexis, and I had talked and decided we wanted this to be, the interpretation wherein they had been lovers briefly before,
yeah, I love that. It's a great touch.
It felt just right. There is an element of debauchery that's going on that is fun and is energetic and is sexy, and then after a while is creepy, and I really felt that what unlocked sort of the whole Baraccio and Margaret thing was that he's like, I can anytime I want, I can just have her dress up like Hero for me, and really, so you do that a lot, do you? That and the fact that he is this unrepentant villain, and then after he hears she's dead, he's like the noblest guy in the world and he wants to be killed. So I'm like, he's just got to be in love with her, and Margaret has to know that on some level, and so that became very sort of sad. So I put sex in that too. you know, you wanted everything to be running at a very high temperature. I'm just going to sit here and make excuses for shooting sex scenes with pretty girls for like all night. But I think the bard himself would have approved.
I also wanted to acknowledge Danny Kaminsky, who's sitting on the far right, because this was all done so quickly and on such a small budget, Danny sort of basically did a lot of things.
Oh, all of them. All the things.
So Danny, what was it like doing all the things?
It was a breeze. No problem. For those that don't know, I am Joss Whedon's assistant. I got hired on The Avengers, which was the coolest job in the world. And then when we finished that, we made this awesome home movie, and he and I edited it, and I co-produced it for him. So I won the best lottery of all time. And now I'm here, and again, lucky Sky. That's what it's like. I would do anything for guys.
I'm going to ask one more question to Joss, and then we're going to turn it over to the Q&A to the audience. So if you want to start lining up the mics, please do so. So I can't let you go, Joss, without asking about S.H.I.E.L.D., in part because you have one of your lead actors here. So you've shot the pilot for S.H.I.E.L.D., and how are you feeling about it?
Sucks. Really, just something about it just didn't work. Well, I am a good unit. Well, you know what? I'm really excited about it. I think it came together beautifully, but I may be biased.
Well, and you brought Clark back to life.
Yes. For realsies.
For realsies.
Yeah, I did. I can't talk about that, really. But honestly, I'll just let you guys know. Heimlich. That's right. All right?
What
Can I say one thing about it?
Yes, please.
Let's move on.
Nice. Is there something that you can tell us that we don't know already about the show?
Honestly, not really.
All right.
You know, the idea was exciting for me because I love Marvel Comics and I love the big spectacle, but I also love the idea of the people who are underfoot in those situations and the idea of, you know, the people who didn't win that lottery, who aren't super, you know, who live in that world and sort of get trampled on. Those are the people that I think of as heroes. And so to have Clark and the group we've created of agents sort of having to deal with that fallout, for me, that's something that I really want to visit and hopefully revisit week after week.
Does that help you because you weren't sure you were going to watch it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's turn it over to the audience Q&A. Who's the first person? Not all at once. There should be mics. Are there not mics? Yeah, they're right there.
Thank you. Good.
Okay, first of all, I wanted to say this was the only production of Much Ado I've ever liked. And I think it is because you did focus on the darker underlying kind of thing that was going on versus just comedy. And it was such a great combination of kind of respecting the verse and you know, hitting the alliterations and all that, at the same time bringing it into this modern American kind of sounding speech, which I also think Shakespeare should be done in an American accent. So I just want to say, great job. I loved it, and also I saw.
The answer is yes.
I saw Cabin in the Woods at But-Numathon at like 2 a.m. drunk, and the effect that had on me, I cannot express here, but you can just go think about that.
Thank you. Let's all learn from this question.
Well, on behalf of all high school English teachers, I would like to say thank you. This was just, I was so excited when I had heard about it, and I'm glad to say it fulfilled my expectations. One question that I have, you know, we know that Shakespeare's stage directions are extremely sparse. How much improvisation actually ended up on screen versus how much did you map out or storyboard in preparation for this?
Storyboard, not so much. A great deal of it was mapped out very specifically. Apparently, you can't just throw Amy Acker down the stairs. You have to have a path. I don't get that rule. But, and then a lot of it came from the actors. And in particular, when we were shooting the scene where Maraccio has confessed, and they're on the front lawn, and Clark is, being really intense, and everybody starts just cracking up, and we are dying. There's every dog in the neighborhood is barking. Crows, we've got lawnmowers, we've got everything. I'm just sweating, and then everybody just breaks up. It's never happened. I'm like, what is going on? It was the only time I was genuinely hurt. Then I look around, then it was explained to me about the car keys, which they were doing behind me. I told anybody about. So I was like, okay, well now we have to put it in the movie. And there were a ton of little things like Sean with the cupcake and he did. I was like, oh, I'm so blessed that he did that. So it's you need both. You need a lot of what's mapped out, especially when you're working that kind of speed. But you also want to give them the room. You want to give them the space because every person here is so inventive, and so they understood their characters better than I ever will. That's how it works. And so, next question. Thank you.
We really like the songs from Firefly. Did you make any of the songs from this movie?
Thank you. I wrote the music. There are 2 songs that are in the play. William Shakespeare wrote the lyrics, and he asked me to write the music. First I was like, no. And yes, I got to write the music. The thing about those songs is if you watch the Kenneth Branagh version, they fit so perfectly into a completely different rhythm and a completely different melody, and to be able to go again and find my own. They're just beautifully constructed lyrics. Thank you.
Real quick, on the Kenneth Branagh version, how present was that in your head as you were making this one?
I'd seen it a bunch, but I deliberately did not watch it. I didn't want to ape it, and I didn't want to be running away from it. I knew I had a different purpose and a different style, and that was going to work out for us. There was only one time, because I was thinking about the famous Patrick Doyle love theme, the Silent War, and I was like, well, how did that go? What was that? And this was before I knew I was going to write the actual score. But I was like, I can't remember. And we were shooting the 2 of them declaring their love, and the moment they kissed in the 2-shot, it just went off in my head like bomb. I heard the whole thing. I was just like, oh, that kiss works. Next question.
I just got a really quick question for Joss. I need your help to settle a massive bet between me and my roommates.
This is where I'm not going to know the answer.
What are your thoughts on the show Lost?
It's just a tiny question. A little tiny question.
Settle in, people. I've never seen it. I never saw it. I've missed out on a lot of culture. You either make TV or you watch it. So yeah, I've never seen it. I hear it's really good, and then it gets confusing.
Just say it's good so I can win.
It's good so you can win.
Okay, so Joss, why do you write these strong women? My question is, I don't see in media stories where you have an otherwise good character like Claudio who is jealous uncontrollably for somebody that doesn't really give him reason to, like Hero. And you see that more in older stories from Shakespeare's time, and even with Henry VIII and his, infidelity accusations against his wives and stuff. So I was curious, what do you think Shakespeare's trying to say that a character like Claudio or Othello is just, so jealous and so quick to believe a lie or mistrust his wife like that?
I would only say that the thing that made Shakespeare kind of break the mold was that he would take you know, the things that were taken for granted. This is a hero. This is a revenge plot. This is, you know, this jealousy is used to further this action, and say, well, no, it doesn't work like that. We're all of these things. And the worst of us is witty or engaged or, you know, self-aware in a way that the best of us isn't. And, you know, I think he very deliberately took what should be, you know, a character who's, you know, noble and true and a great warrior, and he turned him into Fran. Whose commitment to being a dick was so unwavering. How can I make myself look stupider here?
Yeah.
What do we do there?
Yeah, you had to stop me. You're like, they need to like you, stop. I was trying to be as big a dick as I could. But I don't know, I saw it as like there's a simplicity to him. And in that sense, you know, like he's uncynical, I guess. I don't know if this was your question, but, you know, to Benedict's cynicism, or to Benedict and Beatrice are complicated, they're the anti-romantics, you know, there's a simplicity to Claudio. And I mean, I wouldn't want to go so far as to say stupidity, but, you know, I like a thickness, so it's either I'm hurt or I'm not, you know, and he just he runs with that. I don't know.
I think there's, you know, it's a big problem in fiction is that, you know, we fall into these pigeonhole traps, and you know, that's why one of the reasons I love TV is that everybody gets to show more colors eventually, because if it's got more time to, it's easy to fall into the trope of like, well, I'm a bad person, so I'm going to taunt you while standing in front of this plate glass window that I can't possibly be shot through. So we fall into these very easy tropes, and he took them all and turned them on their heads. And I think by the way, my favorite, the definition of Claudio is when Don Pedro is saying, I'll dress up like you. And you're like, really? Is that? And then he's like, and then it'll work out. You're like, great!
I couldn't. That was another. I always feel really guilty when I know directors in the editing room because of how often I laugh. I mean, I remember. So in that scene, I was killing you because I just kept laughing. But Reed is so good in that scene. I'm amazed you were able to cut around me. Yeah.
Next question.
Thank you. That was delightful.
Oh.
I'm trying not to freak out. I've been here since 1 in the morning. I'm a little delirious. But I've been a big fan of yours, Joss, for about 17 years. And I always promised myself that if I ever got to talk to you, I would just say thank you for everything you've ever done. It means everything to me. I'm sorry. Thank you for giving me Buffy, because when I was 6, I had someone to look up to. And just thank you. That's all.
Hi, I was just wondering for those actors that said they hadn't performed Shakespeare before, if it was like difficult to learn or perform the lines in that like weird Shakespearean English, or even like understand what they meant sometimes.
The trick is to not have very many lines. It makes it a lot easier.
I was going to just say, I got a C+ in my Shakespeare acting class at UCLA. And I got in trouble because I set Midsummer Night's Dream at a contemporary prom at a high school. My teacher yelled at us and said, you can't do that, you have to do it again and do it the oldie-timey way. And so I feel very vindicated that Joss did what we got in trouble for. And yeah, thank God I didn't have a lot of lines because I did get a C, so yeah, thank you.
Nathan, what was it like for you?
For me?
Yeah, because
you know,
you handled the language really well.
As I said, you know, I was terrified, and I was really working hard to just get a grip on the lines. They do start to make sense after a while. It's just flowery, and a little bit like Yoda, because they used to. Once you lock that in, you're gold.
I said no, the Yoda thing. Stupid I am. You feel as an American actor, I've done it in college in a couple of workshops, but you don't feel entitled to. Like, unless you could produce a Shakespeare license from your wallet. And I didn't have one. And again, it was to me one of the ways that it was fortuitous. I only had 2 days, and I was so busy with the lines that I was halfway through the first scene, I realized I didn't know how to do Shakespeare. And as I was watching it today, I was realizing it again. And I think that's, again, it wasn't a reverent thing. There was the energy was, what the hell? What the hell, let's try it. There's, why not us? And quickly, what's underneath the language that everyone talks about is such a human world with such deep kind of passions and fathers rejecting their daughters and people falling in love, and that kind of takes over. It's why it's still being done. It's as good as the writing's been, in my opinion. Well, let me say some more.
I kind of have two questions. So first off, you did this sort of really sexually charged version of Much Ado, and so then how did you reconcile that with this plot point that hinges on Hero being a virgin? But then also, Joss, you've done sort of these low-budget kind of epics before with things like Dr. Horrible, but then you've also done these huge, big-budget things like the Avengers. So this, I get not so much the difference between the two, but which do you prefer, or if you don't prefer either, just why do you do both as opposed to just picking one?
Here's the deal. I get to do both, so I never actually have to answer that question. My life is perfect. They're not that different. I mean, ultimately, you're just trying to convey something. If it's a joke, if it's a moment, you're running out of time. This is probably the only production I've ever done where I had the set before the day I had to shoot on it. That helped a lot. Usually the paint is still drying. We were working around everybody's schedules because everybody was working. Same thing on Avengers. The similarities, and the biggest of all is I need a reason for everybody to be here. I cannot ask people to come onto this set or any set unless I know exactly who they are, what they're doing, what their purpose is, and what their through line is, and everybody has to matter equally in the ensemble. So big and little, both great. I'm enormously privileged to do them, but in the end, I'm only ever doing one thing.
Next question.
Hi, this question is for Nathan. Yeah. Basically.
Oh, I'm sorry. She has another question very briefly.
Oh, okay.
About, and as I like to say, we stress the human, not the hymen. Which is simply to say, in Elizabethan times, yes, that is about her maidenhead. In the reason it carries through today, it's about a man who believes his girlfriend is unfaithful, believes that on the night before his wedding she's sleeping with someone else. He believes that he's being cuckolded and made a fool. That kind of jealousy and pain and accusation doesn't go away. That is a human truth that will always exist. And I think that's what's the real heart of the scene, not whether or not she's intact. Sorry.
Nathan, I love your work. I literally watch Castle only because of you, and I do love the show. And I was just wondering, and I was thinking the entire time in this line, what am I going to ask you? And I couldn't think of anything. So I'm basically just going to say, how did you get to be so awesome?
That's a good question. How much did he pay you? I'm going to start with, first of all, you, sir, have excellent taste. I have made a career out of riding coattails. The secret to being awesome is picking the right coattails. I think I had a knack for acting. I certainly enjoy it. I love telling stories until I met Joss. I don't think I was good at it, but I've learned a great deal from Joss. That reminds me, the other young lady, Joss, thank you for everything you've done for me. Thank you very much.
Again, this is like so many of my actors. I gave Nathan I said, I think the most important thing you can say to an actor, which was action. And that's pretty much it. I don't remember teaching you anything, but I do remember, having a great time. I mean, the coattails thing, it works not both ways, but every way. This only works if it's a circle. If it's like one of those trust circles where you all like sit on each other's lap or whatever, it's like a retreat or like first day of college or something. And it has to be that way. I am only as good as they are, and vice versa. And that applies to the crew. Applies to Jay, our DP over there. Particularly on a project like this where there's no margin for error. You must only surround yourself with people that you absolutely know can get it done, or that you can cut out the bits. So that's how I like to answer Nathan's question.
Thank you very much. Next question.
Hi. So I've been directing plays for a while now, and I love doing plays like in a very short period of time. So sometimes I'll do a play in like 2 weeks or a month. And thank you for proving that I am not indeed crazy. But for you, how do you manage that? How do you manage the stress of, okay, I have 12 days to do this, let me plan all of this out? And like, who helps you?
You get an assistant director. You get, in our case, Maylene Williams, who was completely unflappable. And I said, here's an impossible task, schedule it. And, and the producers. And you surround yourself with people who make every decision that isn't the ones the director has to make. And that, including a script that's already been handed to you, fully written. So, a lot of the issues that would normally come up were just gone, including the location, which in this case, because it's the one, gives it a slightly theatrical aspect, but it also gives it a cinematic world that is very well defined and that I understand pretty well. So as much as can be done for you needs to be given to somebody else, because the big stuff is what you can sweat.
Must be nice.
It does. It's not terrible.
And speaking of producers, one of the producers on this, Kai Cole, is your wife.
Yes.
And she produced the house for you.
Yes.
And that she designed it.
Yes, she's an architect, first and foremost, and as soon as the house was built, all we talked about was, well, what are we going to shoot here?
Really?
Oh, nice. It's gorgeous. My only regret is that we didn't have a Steadicam, so we couldn't experience the flow of the place, because one of the joys of it is how one room opens up and leads into another, and I feel I let the house down. I didn't use its best takes. And, you got to give somewhere. Thank you very much.
So I really enjoyed the film, but I apologize. I'm not much of a film connoisseur, so I don't have anything intelligent to ask.
We don't have anything intelligent to answer.
I want to know if I'm the only one who got a big Captain Mal flashback from the gun holster bag thingy. That was totally Captain Mal suspenders to me. You looked right at home.
If we liked it, we did it on purpose.
I'm glad. You should wear them more often. They suit you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Two-part question. While the booze, and how much real drunkenness was in that movie?
Only mine. It really is this extended, very weird party. And we wanted to evoke something that, we often described it as the Kennedy compound. People who are so privileged and a little bit removed from normal life and can just do whatever they want. Plus they've come back from this campaign. And, they're cutting loose on every level sexually, and they're smoking pot, they're drinking. And we really did make it a motif because we felt like there's so much deception and idiocy and just sort of like over-the-top romantic behavior. It made sense. Like the sex, it just felt right. There was also at least one, and it was the Don Pedro saying, I'll woo her for you, or we just couldn't, there's no logic to that unless you're drunk. And what was the other part?
Was there any real drunkenness?
Oh, real drunkenness. There might have been a little bit from the extras of the party scene, because that was a party. We loved filming in our house, but we felt a little twitchy about the idea of bringing a bunch of strangers in the house. So all of the extras were either people we know or film students. And for the party, we invited a bunch of people. We were filming out back, and then, we filmed with everybody, and then we sort of winnow it down to the tighter and tighter scenes, and people would go to the front. I think some actual drunk people showed up in frame. That's what lends it that cinema verite quality. All of the actual speaking roles, it was all delicious colored water. That sort of destroyed the myth. They were drunk the whole time. I was on acid, and a big winged beast, and a live band, and it happened for real.
I think we have only time for 2 more questions, unfortunately, but please.
So what I love so much about all of your work, Joss, is that the language you use is really specific to you. And I was just wondering how filming something like Shakespeare, where you have to be so close to the original text, how that's different for you as a director than something like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, where you wrote a lot of the words.
Finally I get to be really precious with the text again. And you go, no, you can't change that. It's the way I write, it tends to be a little florid, but it's trying as much as possible to be about fluidity of voice. This for me is, it is very fluid, and obviously these guys can speak to that more, but it just makes sense. It has its own rhythm. For me, it was nice just to go, how do I interpret this? How do I want to see it? What do I want to layer over this to help convey it? Which is all I'm doing as a director with my own stuff. So, it was just sort of one last task. The language seems very natural to me. I've read it, since I could read it, and loved it very much. And we've performed it, a bunch of us, together. So it isn't like, what the hell is this? I mean, to me, it's sort of the closest I'll ever have to a second language.
Hi, so I have one question, and it has to do with Firefly.
I'm not aware of that work.
Any plans at all on revisiting anything Firefly related?
I'm just waiting for somebody to step up to that mic who runs Fox or Universal, whichever of them has the rights, for them to ask me. So far, not so much. But,
The other quick thing I wanted to say was, Amy, I love your dress. You look fabulous.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, on that note, thank you all for coming. Thank you all for...
Woo!
Thank you guys. Ashley, did you answer a few more words?
I want to